2 to order. Our access to meetings continues to be in public and also access streaming online. We will move into the opening and roll call and verification of quorum. Carlin?
Mr. Ebel.
Here.
Ms. Bushman.
Here.
Mr. Pope.
Here.
Ms. Portson.
Here.
Mr. Wade.
Here.
Ms. Scott.
Here.
Mr. Robbie.
Here.
Ms. Reno.
Here.
Ms. Erler.
Really?
Here.
We have a quorum.
If we could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We will move into item 4, which are our public comments. We are continuing to accept comments from people present at our meetings as well as email. Did we receive any email comments, Carlin? So no email comments. No one has signed up as of yet. Is there anyone here this evening in the audience who would like to address the board on an agenda item? Seeing none, we will move into our next item, which is the category is presentations, and the first is our Student Senate Representative Report from Adeline Johnson.
All right, so I just have a few updates on behalf of SPASH Student Senate. First off, the ASVAB test was held on December 6th. Students who were interested in enlisting in the military had the opportunity to take this exam, which measures aptitude in areas of science, math, and language. Auditions were held on December 6th for SPASH's musical Pippin, which is to take place after holiday break. SPASH FCCLA held a winter apparel drive the week of November 21st. Students donated unused winter gear that will be available for students at SPASH who are in need. Members from SPASH NHS and Student Senate volunteered in the 5th annual Polar Plunge at Boston School Forest on December 10th. This event raised money for programming at the school forest. Congratulations to boys cross-country runner Bodie Erickson, as he has been voted the District 2 Runner of the Year by the Wisconsin Cross Country Coaches Association. Congratulations to head boys cross-country coach Don Banky, who has been voted Boys Division 1 State Cross Country Coach of the Year. Seniors at SPASH now have the opportunity to participate in Workshop Wednesdays in the Career Center. Students can stop in the Career Center during lunch hours on Wednesday to learn more about local scholarships and seek assistance in the application process. This week, Student Senate is collecting donations of non-perishable items to include in a holiday basket for a local family. Additionally, on December 14th, Senate will be holding a bake sale for students and staff. We will be using the profits to buy presents for the family we are sponsoring through Operation Bootstrap. SPASH NHS is also coordinating a family gift basket with donations from members of the chapter. This concludes the SPASH Student Senate update.
Thank you. Do board members have any questions? Thank you, and thank you to the brave people who went out for the Polar Plunge. Students and administrators and board members. So we'll move into item B, which is the communications report. Sarah O'Donnell.
I got told I got volunteered to do that next year, but I can't jump if I'm taking pictures. So I'm going to use that as
I'll take the pictures for you.
Oh, there we go. There we go. The communication dashboard is included in your packet. I just wanted to call attention to social channels. Engagement's a little bit down. I think it's just reflective of kind of the time of year that we're in. So expect those to pop back up. I do also want to mention we are going to make the decision to move away from Twitter. We have very little engagement there. Our community really is not participating there. We will continue to operate like some SPASH channels, the athletic channels. That's really important for student athletes. But there's really no reason for us to be there. Doing that will also allow us to change how we're measuring metrics and some of the platforms that we're using. That'll reduce costs a little bit for us. So we'll have a message up for about a month that just states, you know, this channel will be deactivated and no one will notice because really no one's there for us anyway. So excited to kind of take that one off. In addition to that, our own digital performed really well this month. We had 3 internal pieces, 1 external piece. That Education Connection, if you remember, we moved away from the printed piece. The costs were just too high there for us to do that, but we did see over 65,000 views on that piece, so happy to see that still getting some good eyeballs. Other projects we worked on, the holiday parade, thank you so much to those who were there. I had a lot of fun coordinating that and seeing all the schools come. We had a lot of mascots participate and a couple board members as well. It was pretty great. I liked it. And then also I've been keeping Corey pretty busy with her video messages, so really trying to incorporate that. We've gotten really great feedback on that, and she's doing a fantastic job. So really happy to have somebody willing to do that. Some staff appreciation pieces, and then just some additional help kind of putting together some fact sheets for folks. So lots to keep us busy.
Thank you.
Any questions of Sarah?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We will move into the superintendent's report.
So I have a few items here. The first is school board elections this spring. We have 3 incumbents, Jeff, G, and Chris. If you are not interested in running, you have to let Lynette know in the Business Services office by Friday, December 23rd at 5 o'clock. And then if there's any new potential candidates that are interested in declaring candidacy, Tuesday, January 3rd at 5 o'clock, they need to fill out paperwork with Lynette in the Business Services office. I was going to, thank the staff, school board members, past school board members that jumped at the Polar Pond Plunge. It was a great event. Lots of people were around. Carla does a fabulous job. There were a lot of SPASH volunteers there. So thanks to everyone that came out for that great event. I was nervous about it, but it wasn't as bad as what I thought it was going to be. I will say that publicly. Actually, it was kind of refreshing. The winter break is December 26th through January 2nd, so just make note of that. We've got that week off. There's tons of activities happening right now within our schools, lots of plays, musicals, concerts, just a really exciting time for all of our students right now. So thanks to the staff that are helping to organize those events. Last week, I had the opportunity to attend the Mid-State Technical College Admit Day. We had 95 students between SPASH and CFC that attended that event. It's our students that are in the Transition to Success program, which is an at-risk program. And what Mid-State does is they offer them the opportunity to be automatically admitted into their program. And it's to take away barriers of, anxiety around the application process. They don't have to submit an application fee. They are just automatically admitted into that program, which is huge. There's some grant money that's involved in that. So it was pretty cool to see that, and they all are offered also the opportunity to sit down with a counselor or a staff member from Mid-State that will help them maneuver their next steps, whether it's to go to Mid-State or if they're still interested in a 4-year, or if they're interested in taking gen eds there and then transferring to a 4-year. So first time I had attended that, it was amazing. It was really cool. SPASH Panther Volleyball donated $25,827 to the Aspirus Breast Care Fund. It was $10,000 more than what they had ever raised. So that was pretty amazing.
It is amazing. Wow.
Yep. And then we found out today, ESSER 3 out of school time grant. We applied in partnership with the Boys and Girls Club to offer opportunities for kids after school at 3 of our elementary schools. We were awarded $535,000 in grant money. So that's huge. Kevin Quavillion and his staff deserve a ton of credit. They did most of the work, but we are going to work with them to implement those after-school programs and enhance what we currently have. And lastly, there is a winter storm coming this week. No decisions have been made. I attended a webinar today with the National Weather Service. I will do the same again twice tomorrow. If by chance we do cancel school, I just want to make people aware that we are not going to do an e-learning day. It is going to be an old-fashioned traditional snow day. So more to come on that. I'll keep people updated as we make decisions. So that's all I have.
Thank you.
Yep.
Board members have any questions? or-
Corey, just curious, how many do you know were for the admit day? Like how many, you said students were accepted?
95
Wow.
between
From our
SPASH-
district?
From our district.
Wow.
Between SPASH and CFC.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
Pretty cool.
amazing.
Yeah, that's a high number.
Yep.
So, Meg, I just want to make a comment about the polar plunge. I think anyone that knows me pretty well knows that I'm a movie person. And someone says, well, really, you want to do that? And it was really exciting. But I pulled out this quote from a movie, We Bought a Zoo. And it says, sometimes all you need is 20 seconds of insane courage and embarrassing bravery, and I promise something great will come of it. And I thought that was a great event. There was so much energy there and just a lot of fun. And I'm so glad Boston School Forest had so much support. So just wanted to mention that.
So, and I'll note I was fortunate enough to be at the MSTC graduation this past weekend. First one they've had in person for quite some time. The student who was chosen to speak was a SPASH grad, Mara Daniels, who is now a corrections officer at Wapaka. And it was incredibly well attended. I think we sometimes, it's just remembering how wonderful it is that we have the opportunities with MSTC and UWSP right in our area and available for kids while they're in school at SPASH and Charles Fernandez and post-graduation as well. So, all right, we will move into the consent agenda. We have the minutes of the prior school board meeting, 11/14/2022. We have the approval of the schedule of monthly bills, and we have employment recommendations. Could I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Second.
All right, I have a motion by Jen and a second by Judy. Any discussion or questions on that? I will have Carlin call the roll due to the monthly bills.
Ms. Bushman?
Yes.
Mr. Robbie?
Yep.
Ms. Erler?
Yes.
Mr. Wade?
Yes.
Ms. Scott?
Yes.
Mr. Ebel?
Yes.
Mr. Pope?
Yes.
Ms. Portson?
Yes.
Ms. Rano?
Yes.
And motion carries.
Thank you. We will move into the business services and human resources part of the agenda, and I will turn that over to the chair.
Yeah, well, we had a committee meeting this last Monday and covered a number of items. Some of those have been recommended to be brought before the board. The first item that we're going to cover, 7B, the 10-year capital improvement plan revision. This is a plan that we have modified periodically as our needs have changed, and with the possibility that the Charles Fernandez Center will be kind of co-located with PODS, then there's a need to make some have some maintenance items done at PODS to accommodate that. So that was one item that the committee reviewed, and I don't know if we're good? Okay. If you have questions, Dr. Owens is here, and he can probably answer them better than I can. But so the recommendation from the committee to the board is that we approve the modification to the capital improvement plan, which again would put $89,000 in the capital improvement plan for this coming year for modifications to PODS. So I'll make a motion to approve the revised 10-year capital improvement plan.
Second.
All right, and I have a motion by Meg and a second by Judy. Any discussion or questions on that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor with aye?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed with nay? Motion carries.
And then the next item under business services is C, status of the professional building. And I probably would ask Dr. Owens to talk about that some, or whoever.
Tom?
Good evening. Sale of the professional building and the status of it. Well, in March, we discussed briefly the fact that the professional building is there. If the movement to consolidate the Charles Fernandez Center along with co-located at the same facility with the POD situation occurred, there's a status of what do we do with that building. We could sell it, trade it, or try to rent it to other people, et cetera. We're not really in the business to be renters, et cetera. That's not our mission here, so that's kind of the last choice, and maybe not one that we want to exercise, but that, of course, is up to you. But probably a better result would be for us to explore the possibility of selling the facility, possibly affecting a trade in that process. I don't know what it would involve. But anything that we would do with that, with respect to the disposition of that building and a subsequent sale, would have to be brought back here. It would have to be contingent upon any approval of the board. So if an offer is made, et cetera, it would have to be contingent upon your approval and acceptance of that, et cetera. So while we would negotiate behind the scenes and try to work something out, any type of a proposal, I'd want to assure you, and of course by law, would have to come back to here for your action on it. In terms of what happens after that, at the time that we would bring that back, we might have some recommendations for you, but no sense mentioning anything now because we don't even know if we're going to sell it or if we'd even find a buyer, or it could be 5 years before we could effect a sale. I have no idea what's going to happen, so. But we can't start the process unless you grant us authority or a direction to do so.
So I will move to authorize administration to pursue the sale of the professional building and property at 1025 Clark Street, Stevens Point, Wisconsin, contingent upon consideration and approval by the board of any offer at a future meeting.
Second.
All right, I have a motion from Mike and a second from Jen. Any discussion or questions on that motion? Hearing none. All those in favor with aye?
Aye.
Any opposed with nay? Motion carries.
All right, the next item under business services is informational only item, district school safety and security report for 2022. And I don't believe we covered this in our committee meeting.
We did not, and actually it is an action item. Mike and Chris Budzinski. Oh, wait a second. My computer is slow. I'm
Yeah,
looking
that-
at the wrong one.
They're doing that
Is
on
it,
mine
is it,
too.
okay, sorry.
Yeah, they're
My
all
mistake.
doing it.
But Chris is here to
But Chris is here to
present.
answer any questions if anyone has any.
Do you want to just come up and maybe give a little background to the board, please?
Yeah, it's, we said this through the last couple of years. The last year, I think it was COVID, they did different drills. Well, this is the first year we kind of came back and did a full drill in each building with all the staff, and I want to say every building had an officer. I only missed one of the buildings I was at, but we had law enforcement working with us at every facility. Started as the first time back at it, so it was kind of a walk motion. It's a very, I encourage you to go. Barb went to one. It's a very humbling, interesting experience. You had a very rewarding experience at the same time because you saw how fast it got immediately silent in a building of 800 students. And they were quiet for 15, 20 minutes, and principals are saying, can we just keep this going? Because, boy, it was fascinating to see, and it was fun to experience, but, again, it's a sombering thing that we go through each year, and as we look forward, we'll keep getting stronger, better, and doing more with it to make sure that we have a safe school system. Any questions on it? And that's anybody that, go ahead.
So just kind of briefly, I was looking through the different schools
Yep.
and some of the information, and I'm sure when you find something that needs to be addressed, you do that. But what I was wondering about, Spash, I think, and Ben Franklin both, it talks about several offices did not hear the announcements.
Yep, so, go ahead.
And, yeah, and then I think on Spash, it said, as the same thing, those announcements. So what, and I'm sure you're addressing that, but how is that addressed?
First thing is, find out where, just put in a work order, and that's what we started. Throw us a work order in, we'll start bringing people up to see where it's at. We ended up finding speakers at Spash that weren't hooked up, and you're like, how does that happen?
Yeah.
But it happens. It just happens in a big building. So you just write down what you've got. Ben Franklin had in the office area, so then they're looking at that to see which ones are, and then just get a quote together and say, how can you expand it? What you need the equipment to expand it, because sometimes it's tapped out where you have enough amplifiers, only push sound to a certain number of speakers. So you have to just up it then.
And then any doors that weren't,
Yep,
Able to
any
lock.
issue we came across, a key not working, hey, throw in a work order, we'll get out there and fix the doors.
Okay.
We found just odd things here and there, and that's what was the beauty of going through it with each
Right.
person and law enforcement using the keys we issued them to open the door to make sure it worked.
okay.
And you find interesting stuff. We found at one classroom where it's really hard for kids to hide. So it's all right, let's either
do you
cover the
need to
window
do?
temporarily or come up with a plan how to do that.
Okay, great, thank you.
I was gonna say, and so for any issues we found that weren't work order related, it says, you know, we'll resolve this in the spring. Who's following up to ensure that we've resolved that, or we've looked for a way to remedy some of these situations?
Yeah, just the ones we have and going back through to Larry, maintenance supervisor, say, hey, where are we at on this one? Let's get it done. And then staff as well, reminding you. I always tell them, if something gets missed, please call right back, 'cause there's a lot that goes on. But then we review it ourselves through that list and look at, say, what did we miss? And some are bigger items that are longer.
Right, and Cabinet has been talking about this as well as the Safety and Security Committee, so there's multiple different people that are.
Checkpoints, okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
Okay, that's it for the business services section. Next is human resources. And the only item under human resources is the final 2021-22 turnover and exit information. So I hope Beth is here to talk about that.
Good evening. I'm going to do a quick summary of the highlights because I know you all have the report and you discussed it at committee. Thanks to Jan Northcraft, who could cover the committee meeting for me. But overall, the district for the 21-22 school year turnover rate is at 14%. If you exclude retirees, we're at 10%. Our teacher turnover rate is at 10%, 8% if you exclude retirees. So we continue to be below most of our neighboring districts and below the state and local turnover numbers, which is at 18%, as well as below the national teacher level, which is at 16%. Most of our employees are leaving because of retirement. However, the second category, the highest category for reasons of individuals leaving, is individuals are leaving for another career. We had 30 employees overall that left the district for another career. However, only 10 of those were teachers. I think one of the questions that came out of the committee meeting was how many of them have, what is the tenure for those individuals? So 7 of them had less than 5 years of experience with us, and 3 had more than 9 years of experience with us. We did have 8 teachers that left to go to other districts for varying reasons. For example, one went to teach overseas. One went back to her district after only being employed with us for 1 day. So different reasons. And I would mention that although we had 8 teachers leave to go to other districts, we had 24 teachers join us from other districts. And that breakdown is 7 from Wisconsin Rapids, 3 from DC Everest, 3 from Mosinee, and 1 from Wausau. Others were other surrounding districts. As far as our satisfaction rating goes, very satisfied to satisfied. For the teachers that responded, we had 68% in that category of very satisfied to satisfied, and 77% for the overall employee group that were satisfied to very satisfied. But keep in mind, only 71 of those 150 that left the district went through the exit interview process. So we would like to see those numbers increase, but we don't make it a requirement. It's on a voluntary basis. So with that, if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
So I'm just looking at the turnover rate when you have the employee groups listed and bus drivers, and we know there's a shortage there, is at 34%. From a trend data perspective, is that typical year over year, or is that higher?
I think this year it's higher than it has been in the past. I don't have the breakdown of the past 2 years, but I know we had quite a turnover
Do
in
we
that
think we
department.
know why? Are they retirements or
Many of them are retirements.
are we doing better with like the bus driver
With hiring,
shortage?
yes, we are. I'm happy to report.
Okay, good. Because I know we've been doing a lot of marketing and so.
We've made a lot of efforts, yeah.
Excuse me, what is our process for getting information from the 50% who didn't respond? I mean, do we send out the invitation to give input one time, or do we follow up with phone calls? Do we send it multiple times? Do we ask to meet with them? What is the process for that?
Normally, we'll receive a letter of resignation first. A lot of times, I'll respond directly to that letter of resignation, specifically for the teaching positions, to get information as to why they're leaving. Then what happens is they're sent a letter, kind of a summary of what's going to happen with them exiting the district, and we invite them to participate in an exit interview, either by contacting any one of us in the HR department or by filling out an online questionnaire. And then we follow up with another letter inviting them to complete that questionnaire if they don't want to come in for the interview.
Thank you.
Does that include retirees? So those that are retiring, we still want their exit?
Everyone,
Okay.
yes.
Do board members have any other questions? So are we seeing certain groups who tend to respond less?
I guess I don't know the answer to that, Meg. I think, teachers tend to respond. I think, in general, people who are just leaving the district and have been satisfied don't tend to respond. So I think it's more individuals who maybe had some issues with the district, benefits, wages, whatever that may be.
Are there any other questions?
Do we have any openings right now? I mean, that you're looking for right now?
Yes.
And what area would be the most prevalent?
For teaching, or, I mean, special ed is definitely the area that we
Special ed
continue to
teaching?
struggle. Yep. I
How
think
many
we've got
openings?
3 special ed openings right now. However, we may have 2 in the works, so.
Do you want to talk a little bit about, I know you, and I know Jen brought this forward, I know you had already been working on it, but with respect to, can you talk a little bit about how someone becomes a sub, and also the fact that we're waiving the fee, or we will be supporting that, just so the community understands we need subs,
Sure.
and we're doing everything that we can do to try to encourage people to consider helping us out with that. It's a great job. It allows people to get in our schools, hang out with kids, work the way they want to work,
Part-time,
in
yeah.
the buildings they want to work in, with the grades they want to work with. But could you just talk a little bit about what that process is, and again, what we're doing to try to encourage people in the community to help us out?
Yes, thank you. So right now, we're running a campaign where we are waiving the fees to become certified to be a sub, and that campaign will run through the end of January. We're in UWSP encouraging students to apply, especially over their breaks, any college student, really, from any of the schools, because it is flexible, and you can really work the number of hours that your schedule allows for. Full-time students can even possibly sub for us. So it's very simple. They can contact Fidelis directly. The information's on our website, as well as Fidelis, which is our sub service. And we have simplified the application process. So it's a one-page application now through Fidelis. Don't have to go through our WeCan application process, because I know that's been a concern for people. And then they will onboard individuals. They will work with the individuals to get the appropriate training, the class that they need to take prior to going into the classroom. And no longer do we require any physicals. So we've really tried to simplify the process, and, we've got long-term sub availability as well as, a daily sub.
What is our actual rate of pay to the sub for Stevens Point compared to the surrounding areas?
We're very competitive. We check that every year. We are a little low, I will say, with the long-term sub rate, but we're very competitive. And then we also provide our retirees from the district an additional amount as well. So I believe the retiree rate right now is at $140 a day, and then just regular sub is at $130 a day.
130, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And if you get certified to sub, is that a 1-year certification, or how long does that last?
It's a 3-year certification.
Okay,
Mhm.
all right. All right. Any other,
With, what was the name of the company again? Fidelis?
Fidelis.
Okay. Are they also recruiting? I mean, we're
Absolutely.
recruiting, they're trying to.
Yes, and their office is located in Pods, so if any individual just wants to show up at their office, they can certainly do that as well.
And they're still doing the necessary background checks and things like that.
Absolutely.
Not waiving that.
No, got to do the background.
You say they're located in pods. Has that always been like that, or
It's-
before we had a contract with them? Where did they go then?
We transitioned from Parallel to Fidelis. When we did that, we allowed office space for them at Pods. Prior to that, they had an office space downtown, and that's when it was with Parallel.
Do they work with other districts?
Fidelis only works with our district.
I do think it's worth mentioning that if a teacher is a long-term sub, which means they're in this one position for more than 10 days, it's $215 a day.
Yeah. Thank you.
Beth, so thank you I think that I love hearing that we're simplifying the experience for the applicants and that we're waiving the fee for a short period of time. It would be interesting to see, where else have we communicated that we're waiving the fee outside of, I know you said you've been recruiting at UWSP, because I think that would be of great interest to many in the community.
So UWSP and as well as Midstate, flyers went to all of the buildings right before, I think, near parent-teacher conference time. They are advertising on all of their job postings. Our job postings include that information as well as the websites. So if we're advertising through Indeed, that information is included.
And are you seeing an uptick of applicants?
I believe they onboarded 10 subs last week.
Is that good news? Okay, awesome.
Yes.
Okay.
If we can just get them to.
I know a couple that have taken us up on the fee waiver, and they're grateful. And I think the more that we can communicate, the more subs we'll get. Hopefully.
I agree, yeah.
So there is no requirement to have a college degree if you're going after college students? What are the minimum requirements to become a sub?
So, oh gosh, I think it's an associate's degree, but we can license them if they're in a program. I'd have to.
However, some students, if they don't have that degree, will sub as like an EA. So they're still interested just to get some experience.
Right, and the certification for the EA, SPED EA, that's also being waived.
Do we do anything like a building sub? Like some school districts will hire a building sub?
So we are looking at putting a permanent sub in each building. Right now, we only have 8 permanent subs. We're hoping to onboard 2 more on Wednesday. And so we will most likely put one at the high school and the 2 junior highs, and then one for 2 elementary buildings. So we can build that up.
Can you pretty much guarantee them work every day?
Yes, I mean, we pay them for 5 days a week, 8 hours a day.
Or when they get hired?
As a permanent sub.
Okay, do they get benefits or anything?
No benefits. They do get some paid time off.
Okay.
any additional questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we will move into the educational services portion of the agenda, and I will turn that over to the chair of the committee, G.
It was Dennis.
Oh, excuse me, Dennis, yes.
No, it was
Actually, I was.
Go
Go around the table.
I was,
My fault, I'm sorry. I was thinking last month.
I was down and out last week.
Yeah,
so,
sorry, G. Glad to have you back.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
Me too.
So Chris took care
Glad
of
you're
it.
still with us.
So Ed Services Committee met on December 5th, and the first item on our agenda was the 2023-2024 calendar recommendation. So in August, the committee looked at some possibilities of what could be done with e-learning. A survey was sent out to a number of parents and administration and a number of district staff, and at the end of the survey, the two choices were eliminating the e-learning or including 3 e-learning days second semester, and that had more support, and that is what they're asking us to approve. The committee forwarded that on to the board, and it would be approving that 3 days of e-learning in second semester. Any other questions administration might be able to answer?
Well, I think, can you just share for the community members, like the breakdown, like you shared at the educational services between parents and the teachers? I think that's helpful.
Sure. So the disaggregated data from the survey indicated that 791 individuals that completed the survey preferred option 1, which, as Chris indicated, was eliminating all 5 e-learning days. Of those 791 respondents, 102 of them were certified staff, so that would be teachers, administrators, student services staff members. 37 were classified or hourly staff members, and 652 identified themselves as parents or guardians. The second option that was presented, as Chris indicated, maintained 3 e-learning days in the second semester. 940 individuals preferred that option. Of those 940 respondents, 311 were certified staff members, 75 were classified or hourly staff members, and 554 were parents or guardians. So in the end, a larger percentage of respondents preferred the second option, which maintained the 3 e-learning days in second semester. Before we go into a motion or any additional discussion, I did just want to share a piece of information that we shared at committee, which indicated that recognizing we are decreasing from 5 e-learning days down to 3, the district is committed to continuing to build staff capacity to develop online content to support learning, asynchronous learning on e-learning days, also using professional development days in the upcoming year to support teachers in building their understanding of what effective e-learning looks like and sounds like. And we're also committing to continuing to evaluate the continued need for maintaining early e-learning days in the development of the 2024 and 25 calendar.
And all of that was input from the feedback, right? The qualitative feedback that we received. And just for the community to note, because I did receive many questions, I think we have opportunities going forward when we send surveys to clearly define what voting for one option versus the other means, because there was varied interpretation. So just a lesson learned for next time. But I do think that for those that wanted to eliminate e-learning, we are decreasing from 5 to 3 days, which is a compromise, which is nice. And then with the more of taking the feedback to ensure that it's more effective this year, I think is a good news story.
Right.
Thank you, Jen.
So Meg, did you want me to make the motion or ask for the motion, or did you
can
want to?
do-
Okay, so the committee asked to approve the 2023-2024 calendar recommendation as presented by administration. So if we have a motion?
Second.
So you have you made the motion, Chris?
Yes.
Okay, and Jeff, you made the second?
Yes, I did.
All right.
Good job.
All those in favor?
Is there,
Oh.
no,
Do we have a second?
yeah.
Well, you actually made it, you said.
I'm sorry.
And then Jeff seconded it.
I seconded.
Okay, well,
And then I'll call it.
okay.
So, do board members have any other questions?
Is this the schedule? If we say yes, this is the schedule.
Unless it comes back and there's a different calendar presented, but at this point, we see no reason to bring it back for any updates.
So this would be the calendar for 2023 and 2024. I just want to note that I do think it's important for us to recognize that there will be times that we are going to need to resort to e-learning with our district, whether it's a snow day, whether it's a professional development day, we don't know. And I think it is really important that we continue to recognize through PD the importance of providing the support to staff and the knowledge to staff about what an effective, e-learning day is. I think when we got into e-learning substantively, as a result of COVID, there was a lot of learning by doing. And I think we're now in a place where we have some really good background knowledge about what works better for kids at the various grade levels. And to the extent that we can continue to build on that moving forward, it just allows our district to have another tool, in the event we aren't able to have school in person for whatever reasons.
Checking for clarification, this calendar, snow days would not be e-learning days, correct?
So this calendar, just like the calendar we are living this year in 2020, 2021, 22, there are 2 built-in inclement weather days. So we could have up to 2 days where school is canceled and not have e-learning. So as Corey mentioned in her comment at the beginning, if we would cancel school on Wednesday, it will be an old-fashioned snow day. We have the ability to do that 2 times in this calendar as well, similar to what we're living this year.
And we generally make that decision at each snow day. It can vary from year to year.
Okay.
Yep.
I want to generally agree with Meg that I think it is important to continue working with our staff and our parents regarding having effective E-Day instruction. I also want to recognize, though, that it's never as good, it's never preferable, and we will minimize that to the degree possible, because I think we've all learned that it is not a replacement for that classroom experience with the teacher, with the environment, and with the supports, and we certainly want to minimize it. But having said that, there will be times when we need to do it because we don't have any other options.
And just a quick follow-up to that, because we did talk about at the committee level too, not everyone has the opportunity to take the days off on e-learning days. So I know that there's Boys and Girls Clubs, but I think if we could just be very clear on options for parents on those e-learning days, should they not have the opportunity to stay at home or ensure that their students or the students or children are completing the e-learning. And I think that's part of the plan, right? Checking to ensure that there's completion, and especially as we look at those underrepresented and marginalized populations.
Yep. Right. Who might have limited access.
Correct.
Any further discussion? All right, so we have a motion on the floor. Motion is to approve the 2023-24 calendar recommendation as presented. All those in favor with aye?
Aye.
Any opposed with nay? Motion carries.
The second item on our agenda was the professional development hours proposal, and the administration is recommending modification to the current 15 hours of professional development required of the teachers. 9 hours of professional development will be completed in the buildings, and I believe the remaining 6 hours will be addressed through the development of their professional practice goals. So the administration, I believe, received positive feedback on that, and the committee recommended that we forward that on for approval. So the motion would be approving the required professional development hours proposal for staff as presented. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a
And
second?
Second.
And a second. Any questions
So we
or
have
clarification?
motion by Judy and a second by Jen. Okay. G? Did you have, I thought you had.
Did
your
I
hand.
look like I was going to?
You did.
I was.
Go for it.
Does this take the place of the existing program that we've had for a while?
So
Where we
this-
have a first tier, a second tier? So that's out.
So for board members, especially those who are new, the 15 hours was a part of the supplemental salary schedule that the board adopted, I want to say about 5 years ago. And as part of that supplemental salary plan, there was the requirement that all teachers did 15 hours of professional development outside of school hours. And I'm going to let Corey and Chris maybe talk a little bit about kind of why they're recommending this and they're recommending the change from that. At the time the board created that, and again, any board members who were on the board at the time, feel free to speak up, but I think it was the board believing that as we created the salary schedule, that it was important that we build into that continuing ongoing professional development on behalf of our staff, kind of above and beyond what was happening within our schools. And for a number of years, there was a significant increase in expansion in professional development opportunities through the district. So, and then I'll just turn
And
it
what we've learned is that process is really cumbersome for staff, and it's really cumbersome for us to have to manage between Teresa Bentz, Chris, Jeff, building principals. It takes an inordinate amount of time just to manage that. And staff have to still complete their PPG and SLO, and they have to do that in conjunction with the school improvement goals and the district goals. So we thought they're doing that already. They're integrating professional development as part of that process. So why not just use that process that's then more vertically aligned as part of the PD hours? Staff, we received a ton of positive feedback from staff, from administration, and we really think that this is going to be a much better option. So if people do their 15 hours with the 9 as part of the ongoing monthly meetings in the buildings, and then the 6 as part of their PPG and SLO, they will automatically then move up the next step on the salary schedule if they have a good evaluation and they also complete their public school works, which is required.
Can you say what PPG and SLO stand for?
Yep. Student learning objective and professional practice goal.
Right. And both of those, G, are required on an annual basis by every teacher in the district. So our goal here is we oftentimes look for opportunities to take something off teachers' plate, and this really presented us with an opportunity to be able to do that.
So if we're going to tie this to their ability to move up in the next scale, I would ask that, say somebody misses a meeting at one school, they're sick that day or something, that those principals need to have a method by which that particular person can make it up, essentially, and be recorded as such.
Absolutely.
Yes. And principals were very willing to accommodate those instances where someone would not be able to attend a meeting for any given number of reasons, and still be able to provide them or share the content that was missed.
I'm very happy that you're doing this administratively. I think that not only is it busy work in some cases, and I'm not sure how effective it was truly in terms of having better instruction in our classrooms, but I also thought it was a bit of an affront to our teachers to say, we have this pay scale, but now you have to do this in order to do, it just, if we have quality teachers and they're being evaluated by their administration and they're being deemed as effective as quality instructors, I don't see why we'd be saying, okay, you're really good, but now we want you to do this as well. They're already doing way more than what anybody should be asking of them. All educators are. So I'm very happy that you recognize that we need to take things off their plate that does not impact negatively upon the instructional process. And I think this is a clear example that if this goes away, I don't think anything instructionally is going to be a deficit. And I think our teachers are on there saying, hey, that's probably a good start. So I thank you to all administration.
Thank you, Dennis.
Quick question.
Yep.
So the way this is structured, do you feel like it's consistent with other districts?
You know,
Typically districts our size?
I'm not so sure that there are other districts that require it like we did. I
Yeah.
think our structure was a little bit different
Yeah,
than what's currently happening,
yeah.
in my estimation.
Mike, I can speak to my experience in Wausau. Just for the 11 years that I was there, we had a requirement of 50 hours per year of professional development outside of contract hours. So it was significantly higher.
50?
50. Yep, right, not 15, 50.
Maybe we'll expect more of those teachers to come.
And in my
over.
previous district, so it's just, it's all over the place.
That is now changed, but for the better part of my work as an administrator in that district, it was 50 hours.
What was the rationale, Chris, for such a large number of
There,
professional development hours?
you know, there was a tiered compensation model that was created there probably about 8 years ago. And the minimum requirement was 50 hours, and they created a series of professional development courses that were put into groups called academies. And you could complete 1 academy, 2 academies, 3 academies, 4 academies. You completed up to 4 academies, you could be placed in the highest tier. And that, of course, provided opportunity for the highest salary. There were other requirements for entering Tier 4. You had to create a leadership plan, which meant you needed to be developing and leading professional development for other staff members in the district. So there were other pieces connected to that plan. It was quite complex. And as I said, it has since been removed, and they've gone to a more simplistic model, similar to what we have, but there was a significant period of time where it was 50 hours per year.
I also think it's important to recognize, you know, that as a district, we've created a 5-year strategic plan. As a district administration and our teaching staff have done an incredible job internally of creating a lot of those professional development opportunities aligned with our strategic plan. And a big part of what this provides is the ability for administration to be able to ensure that those professional, as you're saying, Dennis, those professional development hours and the information, the education is more directly aligned with what it is as a district we're looking for. That's a place we weren't in the same place 7 years ago.
Right.
Let's just say that, and it's because of a lot of groundwork by administration and by our professional staff, our teaching staff also, to allow us to have those opportunities available, so.
Yep.
All right, so we have a motion and a second on the floor. Are there any discussion or questions on it?
Thank you.
All those in favor with aye?
Aye.
Any opposed with nay? Motion carries.
And the last item, which I think is the largest item, was the co-location of Charles F. Fernandez Center and Point of Discovery School, moving the alternative school into the PODS building. They talk about having 2 schools, 1 building. There's a lot of information, but I think the one thing that came out of the discussion was providing both students at both of these schools shared resources and equipped learning spaces. The professional building was not really a school building. It has a number of items that need to be addressed, and I believe probably administration can talk more about, you know, why we're looking at this now, and do a better job probably with details than I can, so I'll give it
So
back to you.
Jeff Milsna gave a report at the Ed Services meeting. He's going to give a summarized report tonight with a few other people. So I'm going to call Jeff up to do that.
I'll pass this to you, Jeff.
Thank you, Chris. That was a great start. I just can't lose Chris's clicker. So, and I'm going to go pretty quick. There's a large group of people who are here, and I'm super excited. And I want to spend most of the time with them being able to come up here. So we're going to have some parents, staff, and students from each one of these schools to be able to speak to you guys about where this fits in for them. Chris's intro was perfect. So really when we look at that first slide, one of the things I wanted to share with you guys is, and I think it's a huge celebration for our work as a district as far as the leadership team goes, Chris, Sarah, our principals, really coming together. We had listening sessions with CFC staff and students. We did that twice because they have an AM and a PM group. We did a listening session for CFC parents. We did one for POD staff. We met with the PODS governance board on 2 occasions. We met with PODS parents and had a listening session for them. POD students have gotten informal information from Mr. Lathrop, and he's going to talk a little bit more about the work that he's done. We're going to also meet with all of their crews out at PODS on December 14th. So one of the things we really wanted to do was make sure that we were providing the information to all of our stakeholder groups in this process. The message that came loud and clear to us, the biggest single message was, these kids, these teachers, they love their buildings. They want to maintain their identities. They want to maintain their programming. There are 2 very, very different schools, and one of the things I think is really important is we have talked as an administrative group, and that's really important to us. They are not the same. I have a special place in my heart, and I wish I had a better name for alternative program schools, but they do a great job with the kids that they serve, and they really make our community complete. So that was one thing we really wanted to talk about. As Chris said, I'm going to kind of skip through a few of these pieces. You're welcome to reach out if you have questions. One of the things I did want to kind of identify and share with you guys was the overall benefits. So you see we broke it down by each one of the 3 major stakeholder groups we had. So with PODS, one of the big advantages they're going to have is right now they are sharing student support services. When we do this move, that person will be in the building all of the time. And having that type of access is really, really important. CFC has a wonderful woodworking area, great equipment, and awesome volunteers. POD students would be able to access that as well. And then the books that are going to be with the CFC group would also be available to POD students. And one of the big things is the CFC student body, it's only there half the time. So that breaks down a little bit different. For the CFC students, there's a lot. They're going to have access to green space. The second one, PE location, is huge. I actually had a CFC student write me a letter, and the CFC student talked about the fact that we have to go every day to PE and come back. That's 10 to 15 minutes every day, and they're only there for half a day. That's a lot of wasted instructional time that they're going to gain back. Having school lunch, an actual set location at their building is huge. That staff has done a phenomenal job making that space work, but to have a dedicated lunch area is something they should have. And then for me, the kids are my focus. And to actually give them full classrooms, to give them the desks and chairs and space that they should have is really important. One of the things the student also shared in their letter was they lack right now a spot to come in and hang out as students. So they sit out in the parking lot a lot in their cars. So now they're going to have space in that building to be able to come in, meet with one another in that space. From a district standpoint, our hope is we'd be able to look at this to decrease our transportation costs. Mike already shared with you guys the ability to potentially sell the professional building. And a big one for me is hopefully reducing the amount of traveling staff. As we start to consolidate that in one location, that idea of not having as much traveling staff would be really nice. The other one is, this slide is the ongoing support. So I think a huge celebration and a big thank you to Chris. He did 3 building walks with me, and Danny and Dan both also went out with me on multiple locations. Safety and security was a really big deal. When we met with the governance board, when we got some feedback from parents, that was a huge piece of it. So it kind of lists out the different things that we're going to be doing to ensure that we can provide the safety and security for all students in the building, whether they're PODS or CFC. And then on the right side, Sarah O'Donnell's been absolutely wonderful to work with. We heard from our PODS families. Continue communicating. Let the district know the role we play and how unique our school is. Make sure that we have accurate information out there. So we've already updated. If you've looked on the webpage, PODS is now listed as a 712 school. They were incorrectly listed for quite a while. We've got that fixed. Sarah and I are going to be working together this year to look at a way to do a marketing campaign for people outside of the district to try to attract them to our community, and pods will be a part of that. And then Sarah has been willing to share all of their resources that she's worked on in the past for marketing and continue to provide that support as she has time for pods as we look to the future. So that's kind of our district piece. Big picture view for you guys. And then I'm going to turn it over to who you really want to talk to, which is going to be the schools. This kind of shows you guys the building. Where door 15 is, out in front of that, that's that front area that right now is the professional area. That's where the parking lot would be added. So that would give CFC students and staff their own parking lot. Door 15 would be students would get a key card, and CFC students would be able to access there. Pod students would continue to enter door 1. And then door 11, which goes out the back, is the door that if you ever go there, it's like a drum set because kids sit there and pound on it to try to get in to the point where they've broken a window. So we want to put a key card on that. So both our CFC and pod students would be able to have access with a teacher to be able to enter the building there. And then kind of where you see door 17 cutting in, there's those middle corridor hallways. I doubt, Chris, your pointer is going to point on there, is it?
No, but I can do it here.
Or do you have your mouse? Can you just move your mouse on it?
You're right.
So
that will be easier.
Go into the building, that hallway in the middle of the building, Chris. Goes into the building.
Okay.
Left, down.
Didn't you say 17?
Yes, thank you, Corey.
Pointing here.
That's one of the areas where we'll have a secure door. So staff will have a key to access, and we'll have one on the other hallway as well. So we'll have the two schools physically having a door that can be opened at any point in time, but separating. Everything in the professional study area, which would be the B rooms and the A rooms, that will be CFC. That is currently space that pods is not using. So we're not going to be taking away any space from our pod students, and we're going to give CFC students kind of a home to be able to be in that building. So what I'm going to do now is turn it over to who you guys really want to talk to. I'm going to let the CFC group come up. They're going to talk to you a little bit about who they are, and then share a little bit about what makes them excited about this process.
Jeff, will they have access to the gym?
Yes. Yes, they will.
We're the last half of the room, so there's quite a bit of us here. Hi, I am Danny Koenig. I am the new principal at CFC this year, and I'm really grateful to be here and that you're giving us this opportunity and this consideration. I wanted to tell you a little bit about our program, and I think most people know a little bit, but I'm surprised how many people will say, you know, what is CFC and who is CFC? We're very proud to be the CFC Phoenix, and still called the alternative high school. We serve 11th and 12th graders. We have anywhere from 80 to 100 students that we serve at any one time on our roster, but like what we explained previously, they come in either a morning session or an afternoon session. It's condensed learning, and we change the way they learn. The students that come to us typically are not on track to graduate for a variety of reasons. Sometimes it's credit-based, and sometimes there's other reasons why. But by the time we have that recommendation and that consideration, we have exhausted all other resources through SPASH and all other opportunities, and it's pretty clear that they're at a 0% chance of graduating with their peers on time. We have a 95% graduation rate for our students. So they go from 0 to 95%, and 93% of them are with their peers. So they manage to get on a track where they're able to graduate. And some of our students are interested in working as they come to us as juniors in going back to SPASH and recovering themselves to the point that they're actually graduating more on a traditional track if that's what they choose to do. Our students go on. In our community, we have parents here that will speak to you next, and we have students that are going to speak to you as well, but they're the ones who are braving the school board meeting fun time, and that can be very challenging. A lot of our students have work and other responsibilities and couldn't be here that wanted to be, but they're also people that live next door to you, or that are checking you out at the grocery store, or that are responding when there's a fire, or that are teaching our students in our very own school district. That's who our population is, and that's the why of how they come to us, and that's sort of how we work. What we change, the what part, is we change some of the pacing. Some students need to work faster or slower. Some students need to work in more holistic ways where we combine different focus or different disciplines or different standards, and they meet several at the same time through a project that's a high interest project. Some students graduate through credits. They have the same 23.5 credits as any other student. Same requirements for courses, meet the same standards, just meet them in a different way. And then other students might take a state proficiency test and the other 5 required courses to prove that they've met those standards and that it's the equivalent to the same expectations for all students. Those are the 2 primary ways that students still graduate. It's just through a different means. And we know that there's always going to be students who learn differently or who need a different process or a different environment, or really it's the whole person. They need that relationship and that different type of mentoring. So that's the what we do. The real magic is who's going to talk next. I feel like that's really who we all need to hear from. I've only been there a short time, and I 100% advocate for this move as a new principal, because I've listened to the staff and the students and the parents and the community and the past students, and the opportunity just to be in that therapeutic environment with that green space. Right now, to get any energy out, we have a parking lot or an alleyway that's a street. We have no green space. We don't have a gym. We can't bounce a ball. We don't have, and that's really needed. Our students really need that. We have students who have 100% perfect attendance on days that we travel and go to gym. And it's the opposite on the days that we don't, but we won't talk about that. So it will have a 100% confidence, will have a tremendous impact on equity, on access, but mainly on those student outcomes and their experience while they're in our district. But I'd love to step aside. I'm not sure who's going to be brave to speak, but we have plenty that are here. And actually, so we have the students. Do you guys? How do you? Okay, they're going to the back. I'll go give them a pep talk. The wonderful student services staff that we talked about, that's already shared, and that will be more accessible, is one person. It's Joe Rickard, and he would speak next.
Student services.
Yes, he is our student services department, and he's already making a big impact at POTS, and I think that POTS will speak more to that, but I can also testify to that, so I'd love to hear from Joe. And we have staff here, certified staff. I'll give our students a little pep talk. We had, and then we'll see who might speak there, and we have parents that are here that I would love to hear from as well, so hopefully we can set aside a minute for each person or so. Thank you.
Take it away, Joe. Maybe we'll just piggyback off each other. How about that?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Joe. I'm the social worker there.
I'm Gabby Goes. I'm a special education teacher. I've been there at the alternative school for 10 years.
Yeah, I've been there. This is my 5th school year. First as an intern, now as a social worker. One of the things I just want to talk about was something that Danny already kind of hit on a lot, and that's just what our programming actually does. You know, for the 5 years that I've been there, I've got to see my students access really great teachers and really great staff and really great alternative ways of learning, you know, finally validating the way they learn versus the last 11, 12 years that they've been in school, where whatever reason, it just didn't fit, just didn't work. So we finally get that chance to get to show them these things and show them that the way they think, the way they learn is valid, and that we get the chance to do that. They've got to access the teachers and these different styles, but the one thing they have never really had access to is an actual school building. I think over that 11 years, that 12 years where it hasn't quite worked, there's a lot of kind of almost distrust or invalidation that kind of happens over those years. And there's a lot that we have done, and I could talk all day about the great things that I love about CFC and why I'm there and why I continue to be there. But the one thing we can't do until we get the chance is rebuild what it means to be successful in a school. Our kids know they can be successful with us, and I'm very proud of that fact, and we're damn good at what we do, but at the end of the day, I want them to know that they can be successful in an actual school. They don't have to leave the environment. They don't have to be segregated to actually find that success. They have the potential, they have the capabilities, and this is kind of our chance to to kind of remake that. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
and given that so many of our students are unique learners and they need engagement and flexibility, the fact that we don't have a green space or the fact that we don't have a cafeteria or we don't have a gymnasium, it's like all those really good things that oftentimes gets kids connected to school or with their peers, we're really lacking. Jeff talked about too the loss of instruction time. I think when you said 15 minutes travel, for 5, it's probably more like 25 minutes.
Especially if there's a train, it's, yeah.
Yep, there often is. And each of our students are in attendance at the alternative school for 3-hour chunks. So we have a 3-hour chunk in the morning and then a 3-hour chunk in the afternoon. So when you take away 30 minutes of instruction time every day, it really slims down. And then as you know, coming back from transitions, there's always additional minutes to get kind of recouped and regenerated.
Those are my busy
there.
times, yeah.
Yeah, those are busy times. So those are all just really important. And also I feel like sometimes there's a negative stigma about the alternative school and, we kind of work in a silo where our building doesn't look like a school building. We want to be more incorporated with the community and show you what, we have to offer as well.
I was just going to touch on just the food service. So just the last few years, we've actually gotten hot food where we didn't have those resources. We have a little station about this big where we have our lunches and our breakfast, and it's very limited. We get to choose 2 things. Spash delivers our breakfast and then our lunch. But we're very limited. And myself, I decide kind of what the kids want. And I usually kind of go the best route because they should be offered the same as all the other schools. And so I think just having that cafeteria area, they should be the same as everybody else. And right now there isn't. It's very, very limited. And also with that, the travel time of the food. So sometimes then travel time of the food, we're temping it, making sure it's okay. If it's not, then they need to, run back and forth. It's just not, the other schools aren't like that. And there shouldn't be a reason why that we don't have those options.
The food's also located in a classroom.
Yes.
So we might have students running in and out trying to grab some grub when we have a speech class going on or something. So it's just, it's not conducive to a learning environment.
And then also with that, like someone's role is to do the food service part and things. So you're kind of taking away from other things. And like you said, it's making noise. I'm rolling a cart in the middle of their classroom. And the smells and the, the noises of the heating things and things. So having a nice cafeteria, having a space would be wonderful.
Did we get anybody?
Thank you. 20 seconds of bravery. 20 seconds of bravery. You heard that part, right? Here we go again. I'm here to we'll catch you if you fall.
Okay. I'm a senior at CFC. So I think I started this year. So I haven't really seen everything, but I think just the change to pods would be awesome. It's an outdated building. It gets cramped at times. So I think just having like that green space would be helpful. I know at least for me, because I like stepping outside, but and with the gym, it gets annoying. Like having to go out in the cold and on the bus and then drive there. I'm not gonna lie, the bus driver's kind of crazy. So yeah, I think just having like actual classrooms as well would help. I don't know. I love this school. I think this is like the only school I have actually like going to. So the building doesn't matter. I think it's just I like the spirit. I like the staff, yeah. So it doesn't matter what building we're in. So I just think the change would be awesome though.
Nice job. Thank you. Thank you very much, Danny, staff and students. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Nice.
Hi, my name's Deanne Donahue. My son is a senior at CFC. We are very new to it as my son, due to some medical reasons, ended up being credit deficient this semester. So he just started last semester. And Danny had told me about wanting to possibly move CFC to Jackson School. And I think that's a great possibility, and I was very excited to come and address you. There are a lot of challenges in getting into CFC, but one of the biggest constraints is space. They can only take so many students in. And I think being able to expand their education area could open the option to helping more students that are struggling. Granted, there is budget and staffing constraints, but it opens up the possibility to make the program bigger in the future. They customize their programming to each student, which is very important. I know there is steps and pods and online learning, but honestly, that doesn't encompass everybody. Everyone has different needs due to different reasons. So I think that additional space could help students. Another is, as they had stated, the lack of a cafeteria. The valuable education area is being taken up by food service. There's a distraction of setup and takedown. And again, it's, you know, the students are in that same area their whole time that they're there. They don't have another place to go out to, a cafeteria like us. You, from work, you get up, you go to the water cooler, so to speak, just for a break. There's no gym space. They're transported to the Y, and as I said, that takes up valuable education time. When they're only there for 3 hours, and you're taking 20 to 30 minutes of that time just for transportation. Because they get on the bus, they get off the bus at the Y, they have to walk to the whole other side of the Y for the room that they're going to utilize. Not to be mean to teenagers, but they are not like soccer parents in a hurry to get someplace necessarily. So the dedicated gym space would be wonderful, allowing additional teaching time. The wood shop they have is a phenomenal asset, but it's in the basement at that building. And on our tour, they're utilizing the space wonderfully. They have great equipment, but when you go into that room, there's no windows. Those doors are really heavy. And when they shut, I must say I was rather claustrophobic. And I just think having a really nice area in which to spread out and work on a project, especially with windows, would just make such a difference. And it's a skill that I think is great for them to learn. Also, there's the lack of a library. Books are knowledge. The students need to have access to them. You know, they can only bring in so many to that limited area. Here they'd be able to have a library space. And there's the additional cost of that building. But lastly, I feel CFC, it feels like it's on an island. It's all by itself, downtown in an office building. The students only see each other, their faculty, but it's not friendly down there, you know, the whole area that they're in. I think being in pods, or being at Jackson School with pods, even though they be separate, there could be a camaraderie. They could have a true school building. You know, if you don't have the appropriate place to work, working at home during the pandemic was hard. You didn't have the right setups. Giving them the right educational setup could really help them, and it might help eliminate the stigma that's associated with an alternative school if they could actually be in a building. So I just want to say thanks to CFC. My son is doing phenomenal. He is looking forward to attending Midstate with the program Corey was speaking about earlier to attain his associates and then move on to the UW system. So it's a phenomenal program, and I hope you'll give it great consideration. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Brian Sloss. I'm a lifelong educator, and I never imagined that my kids would need CFC. And when my kids needed CFC, I met these wonderful people. And when my oldest really didn't have a path forward and really didn't care about a path forward, these people helped him find that. And so when you look at it from an educational perspective, which is what you're all charged with, there's three key things. It's the students. It's always the students. Then it's the faculty. Occasionally it's some administrators, but mostly it's the faculty. And then it's the resources. And that's the thing that is just at a bare bones level right now for CFC. And why does it matter? It matters because these kids matter. Every single one of them matters. And every single one of them has a path now when they come through this system and they engage. It's up to them. They have a role here. But when they engage with this path and they're given the right resources, they can make this happen. One of the weirdest things that I heard when my son told me, he says, like, yeah, I'm going to gym today. I'm like, is that the bus? He's like, yeah, they're going to bus us over to the gym. It's like, okay, you don't belong in a school. And I think about what my school is. I don't think about what my GPA is, or was. It's long past. I don't think about who was a rock star student and who was an also-ran. I think about the camaraderie. I think about my association, with being at my school, being part of that alumni group that went through. And a big part of that is place. It's that sense of place, and it's that feeling of belonging. And I think these students, they deserve it. My boy won't get an opportunity to have that at this location because he's going to thankfully be graduating midterm here and is looking forward to going to Mid-State. But these students will, and the next generation after them, and there are going to be more needs. We all know that. And so as we do that, giving them a path forward with the right place and the right resource, that's the community I want to raise my children in. And that's the community that I want to be a part of as I go through the rest of my career. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
So I'm going to turn it over, and if the two of you want to come up. Go to sleep, Chris? Sorry. He probably knows his building. But before he goes, I do want to share something. I thought, Chris, you were going to take this one from me. One of the most phenomenal things out of all those listening sessions was when we sat down and we met with CFC parents. There were a bunch of students there. And Dan opened up, PODS parents. There were a bunch of PODS students there. And one of the things is we opened up and Dan asked his students to share. And I have never heard young people talk and act so much like adults as I did there. They were speaking not to what they might lose, but what they could gain. And they've worked very hard to create a true mission and vision for their school. And I don't think I could have given any group of kids a better passing grade, but to listen to them talk about that this wasn't about us, it was about our ability to help other people. So I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, well, that's my report. So just a quick update on PODS before I turn it over to Aiden, who likewise you want to hear her more than me. This is year 8 for us now. And this is our first year with graduating seniors. Aiden is one of those graduating seniors. Aiden has been with us since 6th grade. So she is a walking testimony to the awesomeness of our school and our teachers. I'm here just on behalf of our staff. With regards to CFC co-locating in our building, Jeff and I have had many conversations. Chris has been at the building several times, and I do appreciate the fact that, from the get-go, when I raised a lot of logistical concerns about busing and parking and things like that, they've been very responsive to that, and I'm very appreciative of that. I also will say that whenever a change like this happens, of course, there will be issues, and there will be things that happen that aren't perfect, but I also know that the CFC staff is completely committed to their school. We are completely committed to ours, and I know Danny well enough to know that she and I will be able to logistically kind of manage those issues. The biggest concern from our staff is just, as Jeff alluded to earlier, is just maintaining our identity and having people clearly know who our school is and what we do. And just making sure that people understand that we are PODS. We are our own unique school, not just next year, but years down the road. Because as the students and parents at CFC really wonderfully stated how proud they are of their community and how much it's meant to them, likewise, I think our parents and students would say the same thing. And so that identity piece and just the understanding of who we are and what we do is really, really important to our staff and students. And so with that, I'll just turn it over to Aiden and let her share a few thoughts with you.
All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Aiden, and I'm a senior at Point of Discovery High School, middle school too as well. First things first that I wanted to say is this is not the first board meeting that I've ever sat on, and it's also not the first one where we've had a POD student presenter. So I'd like to say thank you for the opportunity to advocate for my school and share my opinion. That means a lot to me, and so I am very thankful for this opportunity. One thing that you'll find consistent with all of the Point of Discovery students who are talking about the relocation of CFC to our school is that they are very excited to be able to work with these other students and to help them out and to give them good opportunities. And honestly, our pods kids know the CFC kids for being kind to us, even though we're bad at mat ball. Because we've definitely played some difficult games with them before. One thing as well that the pods kids have a great respect for CFC with is our shared difficulties with misconceptions of our school. Because you have heard, and I heard as well, some of the parents speaking and students talking about the stigma that is connected with the Charles Fernandez Center. And so with the relocation of CFC into our school, I believe that my biggest concern would be letting each of our own separate stigmas and misinterpretations of our schools mix together and then hurt each other in the process. Because these are both wonderful programs, and they're both very different from each other, and they're both very beneficial to their kids. And so just the point that I would like to make is to, if we let these misconceptions stand and these stigmas stand, in the end, that hurts the educational programming that we are trying to reinforce and help by bringing these two schools into the same building. And so I think it is something that should have a lot of focus put on it when this move occurs. But yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Nice
Amy.
job.
Are there any questions from you guys that you want me to answer?
Dennis, and then
I had
Barb.
a comment and two questions. I feel like a collective shame on us is probably appropriate. I look at what has gone on in our district the last 2 years in terms of the great money and the great things we've done for every building in this district, beautiful buildings. And then, unless CFC has changed since I went last through it, it's like, that's not a good look when you have kids going through Class A schools, beautiful schools that everybody can be so proud of and to be a part of, and then you go to CFC and it's an office building, which they've done their best in, but even the best of times, it's never anywhere near what the other students who are being educated are experiencing. And we all say that we care about these scholars and the importance of the program, and yet the resources that currently and the facilities that they currently are utilizing certainly don't reflect that kind of comments. So I'm glad that the administration and the parents and the student bodies are looking at this in a positive way. I do have two real quick questions. What is the current enrollment for both PODS and CFC?
See how good I do. 145 and 35 and 40.
Which is which? No, I'm sorry.
145 is pods, and then 35 and 40 are the two sessions at CFC.
So total 75 that they serve. And those are considered full-time FTEs, is that correct?
The students?
Yeah, are they considered?
The students at pods are all full-time. The students at CFC, they have a morning block, and then that's one of those.
Are they considered one FTE as far as our budgeting is concerned? Even though they're only half day, are they
Yes.
one FTE? They are a full FTE then. And my second question is, as you look at what it's going to take to transition, you're talking about parking lot, I know how expensive that is. What is the dollars, the estimate in terms of accommodating this change? And has it been budgeted for? And if not, where would the funds come from in towards of that
So
transition?
89,000 was the budget that Mike was speaking to earlier, and that will cover the cost of the parking lot, the doors, everything.
And internally, you think you can move in there and things are?
Yep, we do have, there's office space, because right now, a principal and a social worker need to be able to have an office space, so we're gonna be using we're gonna have wall dividers be brought in to build private office spaces, so that's all of that included.
So I'd say that we're getting a bargain in terms of the scholars who are going to CFC. That's a bargain compared to where we spent other funds. So I'm very, very supportive of it, very appreciative of it, and I'm glad that, again, the administration, yourself included, this is probably long past due, honestly. So thank you.
Thank you, Dennis.
Barb?
Is the building name going to change? You know, we call Splash Splash and Pods.
Well, I think you would, that would be a discussion I would turn over to the two principals. Pods is Pods. Like we talked about, we've got two separate schools. And then CFC is going to have theirs. As they have discussions about that co-location in that building, we want to keep their identity. So I would say that will be the discussion on both of those buildings. They're certainly not going to be changing because of us.
I've spoken to parents that have been at some of the listening forums, and I want to say I appreciate the change management approach that administration took. It wasn't just a top-down approach. It was like, we want to get your feedback, we want to bring you along, and it doesn't matter whether you're a student or you're a teacher or you're a parent. Like, we want to hear everything collectively, so I appreciate that. And 95% success for graduation rate is tremendous. And so you've been so successful despite the current environments. I can't wait, given that this passes, to see how successful you are after. Yeah.
Sure. And just one comment, I was allowed to listen in on the listening session that they had at PODS, and I was so proud of the students. They were so concerned for the welfare of the Charles Fernandez students. And it was not about them at all, but how can we help? How can we welcome them? We're excited about it. It was such a, and I don't know if the administration was expecting that from them, but it was really exciting. I literally had goosebumps listening to them, just proud of them. It was just so selfless. So just wanted to mention that.
Yes. Are there any other board members that have any comments?
Jeff?
I just want to note that, that I think we've talked often as a board about the reality that kids learn different, that we all learn different. And I just think it's wonderful as a district that we continue to have an administration and from the ground support for providing different ways of learning, different opportunities for learning, different schedules for learning for our kids. I think this is a positive step forward for both PODS and for CFC, and I'm looking forward to what administration brings us next.
Right, for sure.
So I think we're looking for a motion to approve the co-location of CFC to PODS as presented, to include remodeling as reflected in the adjusted 10-year plan for approval.
So moved.
Second?
Motion by Judy, second by Chris. Any discussion or question on that motion? All those in favor with aye?
Aye.
Any opposed with nay? Motion carries. Anything else from Med Services, Chris?
No, that was it.
Okay.
It was a lot.
Good job.
All right, we will move into, thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Move into item technology services. A is our cybersecurity briefing.
Good evening. So I'm here to talk to you about something very important, very serious. Just listening to this board meeting tonight, all of the programs, the students, the operations, all of those things that we do as a school district can be put in serious jeopardy by some of the major cyber attacks that have only grown increasingly worse this year. This is the first time ever we've been warned by the FBI and the DPI that K-12 school districts are being specifically targeted. So I'm very fortunate. Ever since I got to this district, we've had great administration. Superintendent Hersprinter, Superintendent Gerlach before her, our cabinet, our school board have really understood the importance of cybersecurity and have backed everything that we've done. That's not always the case in a lot of school districts and a lot of my colleagues, where they really have to work hard to get these things done. We had a discussion this fall when those advisories came out, and we thought it was very important for the board to understand the work that we've done over the last several years and why it matters, what we've done and what we are going to continue to do to keep our students, staff, and everyone safe in the district. So I got that date up there. 2016 is really the year that this started getting real for most businesses in America and most school districts, nonprofit organizations. Why is that? That's when cryptocurrency showed up on the scene, and that's when professional gangs learned that there was more money to be made instead of attacking individual computers, that they would go after larger organizations and literally hold their resources hostage. They would come in, turn our own technologies against us, encryption, encrypt everything, hold it for ransom, and then extort money. And they could get paid with cryptocurrency. It's really, I've heard it described as asymmetric economic warfare. You can have a few individuals in a far-off country that can literally hold millions of people hostage with very little resources. It costs us a lot more to defend than it does for someone to have a few computers and an internet connection and throw an attack together. So that's why it's such a problem. The other thing that showed up recently, it's also very disturbing. It's not enough to hold your resources hostage through encryption. They'll literally get in and steal your data. So that's happened in numerous school districts where they'll get in, they're hanging around for months, they steal all your data, and then they say, well, if you're not going to pay us the ransom, then we're going to publish everything out on the dark web. We're going to publish your personnel reviews, your student disciplinary files, your IEPs, all the stuff you don't want people to see that's very confidential and important, they will publish. So that's the threat that we're up against. It's only gotten worse. Just to give you an idea, who are these people? There's numerous groups. Believe it or not, there's actual nation states. They do this too. Russia, North Korea, Iran are major players in this game. A lot of times it's to get money because that's the only way they can get around some of the restrictions that are placed upon them. It's the Wild West out there. So the idea that there would be a school district that's attacked by a nation state, that has happened. The number one group is cyber criminals, and it's just outright greed. They don't care. They don't care if you're a healthcare system or a school district. They want their money, and they'll just keep attacking. And of course, there's the traditional groups that you see over there, hacktivists, terroristic type groups, which in the United States, unfortunately, seems to be on the rise too, with politically motivated people, and then sometimes malicious insiders. That's a view. This comes from the Government Accountability Board that did this review. You can see in 2016, that's the number of attacks in K-12 school districts. It's just getting worse. 2021, it's on the rise. I don't know what it looks like for 2022, but it's probably not much better. What are some of the things that we're up against? I mentioned at the top would be ransomware. That's what everyone talks about because that's the most destructive. But really, ransomware is just a symptom for having poor security. And if I look back to where we were prior to 2016, it's nothing compared to where we are at today. And it's because we realize all of this matters. You can't just do one thing and think that it's going to solve all of your security problems. You have to look at it holistically. For us, one of the major avenues for attack is phishing. We spend a lot of time and resources trying to educate staff about how problematic that is because email is so ubiquitous. It's out there, everyone gets it, and unfortunately we're up against experts that know how to manipulate us and get us to literally turn our own computers against us. Download this, install this, enter your credentials here, and they just bypassed all of our defenses. Phishing is number one. Password attacks, that happened at Los Angeles United School District. That was a big one that kind of prompted the FBI. They literally just used some very simplistic ways to guess passwords and broke into the Los Angeles School District. I'm not going to go through all of these, but even just using your browser, going to the wrong website, you malvertising, you get on there, you click on some things that are clickbait, you're prompted to go somewhere you can't or you shouldn't, you can get your computer infected. So what I'd like to do now is talk about what we've done here to reduce risk. And it's really important that we understand that we're talking about risk reduction. There's nothing that we could do that would say, oh, we've done these 5 things, we're safe. We're never safe. We've done a lot to reduce our risk, but there's no such thing as zero risk. I think the most important thing we've done is a lot of training of our staff and a lot of collaboration. So we've invested in a lot of our staff in terms of getting advanced training. The SANS Institute is a professional cybersecurity organization that offers very in-depth training. We've done that. We belong to the Multi-State Information Sharing and Analysis Center, which is part of the federal government. They help K-12 schools and nonprofits. We get a tremendous amount of support from them for free. It costs us nothing. They give us threat intelligence. They give us tools. I could go on and on about how important that group is. Also, there's in Wisconsin cyber response team that's part of Homeland Security. It's actually run by the National Guard. We participate in that. We have 2 members of our IT staff that are being trained as responders to serve on this, and they've actually responded to several incidents. The benefit to us is when they respond to an incident in another K-12 school district, we get to learn from that, and they bring that back here. So not only are we helping other districts that maybe don't have the same resources we do, we're learning from that. Number 2 is prevention. I mentioned the phishing. We use a service called KnowBe4 to do automated security awareness training, send out simulated phishing emails, which aren't hugely popular. I get it. People don't like that. I think they understand the reason why, just like bloodborne pathogens, other things like that. You have to do it. It is effective. And just like most things that I want to show you today, we do measure these things. If you don't measure them, you have no idea whether they actually work or not. Our phishing click rate has reduced dramatically since we started using KnowBe4. It's also our way for staff to report suspicious emails and to nip things in the bud. Picture in the middle, it represents our firewall. We do a lot to try and just prevent stuff from coming in while they're in district. Another example of a preventative control is multi-factor authentication. We did that last year. Everyone uses that. We're extremely proud that we pulled that off for all staff, and we're going to be moving on to doing that for secondary students hopefully sometime this year. That at the bottom, the Center for Internet Security, is a government agency that also provides a lot of resources for us, again, for free. Just an example here, I was talking about phishing. These are some of the metrics we look at. I'm going to go back. Just for a typical day, this 15-day period, we had almost 750,000 emails that came in. On a typical day, it could range up to 50 to 100,000 emails. This is an example of how many of those might actually be malicious. Spoofing is a way that they try and trick you. So if you look at that, they spoofed a domain name. On a typical day, you're looking at anywhere from 100 to 200 emails per day. So that's what we're up against. We adopted a framework to actually control and help shape our work. We're not just trying to guess at what we need to do. The Center for Internet Security has provided these 18 controls. And if you follow these and you do what they say, then basically that's your best practices, and you know that you've done what you need to do. If you can do 80% of these controls, you've protected yourself against most cyber attacks that are out there. I say most. Again, there's no such thing as zero risk. But we did a significant amount of work over the last 2 years. And what that looks like now is they have these in control groups, 1, 2, and 3. Group 1 are the basics. If you have the basics done, you've lowered your risk by about 80%. We're done with those for the most part. Group 2 is harder. We're still working on those. And Group 3 is very difficult because of the resources that would be required to complete it. So I'm pretty happy with where we're at in terms of completing Group 1 and then Group 2. And again, that just tells us how do we know what we need to do and what have we gotten done. That's just a breakdown too. You can kind of see the first slide is actually more, I think, informative in terms of our progress. But again, we're looking at these controls saying, well, maybe we have to do more on Control 13. If you want to know how we compare to other K-12 school districts, it's an interesting diagram. That little line in the middle there, the red, is what most U.S. school districts are at. And we're the blue. So we've done a lot more work than most of our peers across the nation. Another thing that we do as a risk reduction strategy is detection. We don't believe that we'll ever truly be able to say we're going to keep everyone out. So what do? You try and detect the presence of someone trying to steal your information, trying to encrypt your data. So we use what's called endpoint detection and response. And that's on every single computer that we have. The computers you guys have in front of you right now have those on there. When it sees something, it alerts us. It actually uses machine learning to kind of filter through terabytes worth of information and then proceeds to deliver an alert for us. Now, if we had a staff that worked 24/7, we could look at that all the time. We don't. So we actually pay for a managed service. That's called managed detection and response. They are looking at this data 24/7. So when we leave for Christmas, we know we don't have to be checking email. If there is something that happens, they will jump on and respond and they will call us. So that's sort of like a force multiplier for us. It's an example of what that looks like. When we started with the managed detection, our security investigations have dropped down. I think we've done a really good job. This is never something that you just say, well, it's outsourced, they're going to do it for us. We work hand in hand with them every day, working on tickets, trying to resolve issues, and we have confidence that if something happens at night or on a weekend or a holiday, that they're going to be able to respond and get us involved. Just to give an example of some of the stuff that we look at, in our network we have, probably about 12,000, 13,000 devices. There's the unknown is the Chromebooks up there. We have about 3,000 laptops, workstations, 1,200 network devices. So all of those things we're looking at, actually pulling in data from and trying to see what is going on those devices. Another part of our strategy that's very important is we have moved a lot of our operations to the cloud. Why is that? Google and Microsoft have resources that we could never touch. And if we move things there, it makes it that much harder for a cyber criminal to try and get in and disrupt what's going on. So we actually have a hybrid network environment here, a hybrid cloud. Half of our resources are here on premise, half are in the cloud. If we ever get wiped out here, we can literally bring down those resources from the cloud and it helps us restore. And they're doubly protected. We moved skyward to the cloud at IS Core, again for the same reasons. We never have to worry about our data being encrypted here because it lives on the cloud. So if our entire network was shut down here, people could still get to Skyward and Google and most things that they need to do. And I mean, if we ever had to work remotely, they could do it. Another important thing is backup. We spend a lot of time and resources developing good backups because if something happens, you need to be able to restore that data. We use what's called a 3-2-1 strategy, 3 types of data, 2 storage media, one of them's on the cloud. So we literally have Kennedy and another site that have storage that's readily available. One copy is going up to the cloud, and then we have another copy that goes over to an unknown location, I'm not going to say, where it's air-gapped, which means it's not online. So even if for whatever reason someone got to our resources on the cloud, we could call up this vendor and they would literally bring drives over here to install. We have immutable backups. And we check those too, where it says 0 error on there. That's very important. You can't just trust that your backups work. They need to be tested. We get daily reports on our backups, and we physically test how that restoration process works 2 times a year. We've done a lot of work updating computers. In fact, I helped some of you tonight doing some updates. It's really important because that's the name of the game. If you have an old computer or older software, it's exploitable, it's vulnerable, and it will be attacked. There was a school district not too far from us that suffered this fate, and they weren't updating things. To a cyber criminal, that's like waving a flag out, just saying, please come, pillage and rampage our resources, take what you want. It's hard to do. We've done a lot of work. Windows is automatically updated for us, and we also update every application, most every application. I wouldn't say every, but the most common, most important ones. And it's all automated, so we don't have to sit there and think. Now that's complicated because sometimes things will stop working as new updates come out, but that's our job to try and mitigate those corrections. Sometimes we have to pull things back. But I feel a lot better about this process right now than I did certainly 2 or 3 years ago. We also have a response plan. You have to be able to respond. We didn't make this up either. This comes from the National Institute of Standards and Technology. And we have a plan that's based on these 4 principles: preparation, detection, containment, and then a post-incident activity. We have a brand-new plan this year. It took about a year to develop, and we're hoping to put it to the test with a tabletop exercise so that we can kind of walk through some of the decision-making that goes with that. And for our next steps, probably the next 4 most important things we're going to do this year, we're working on student multi-factor for secondary students. We don't think it's needed for elementary students. They live in a walled garden. They're just not online as much, whereas the older our students get, the more they expand their digital footprint, the more there's chances for compromised credentials, accounts, what have you. So we're confident that that's probably going to happen this year. We're doing what's called Intune management, which is another way to image and update computers. Tabletop exercise, which I hope to have soon. And then lastly, a penetration test where we hire somebody, we literally hire our own hackers to come in and see what they can find out. So we're feeling that our security program's at a mature enough level where it makes sense to actually pay someone to try and do this. So those would be our 4 remaining goals for this year. And that was it for my briefing. So I will gladly answer any questions that you might have.
It's important work. I think a lot of it's invisible work, so thank you, Brian.
Yeah, we talked about that. I thought it's really important for the board from a governance perspective to know what it is we're doing and why. And you're exactly right. I mean, this wouldn't come up in a normal conversation.
Right. Having worked for an organization whose system was compromised, I appreciate the good work your team does.
Right.
Brian and his staff have just done a phenomenal job. We are very fortunate, knock on wood. But as Brian said, we're never, 100% guaranteed. But I feel very confident in Brian's ability to keep us as safe as possible.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
Thanks so much, Brian.
And just so board members are aware, the phishing stuff comes out to us as well.
Oh, yeah.
I get it on my work, and every time I click it,
I get
I
it.
get mad a
myself.
couple times. I mean, it really is a learning experience, so.
The only thing is, what I found with those is if I look at my email on my cell phone, I can't report it. And that's when I get the thing that says, now you have to take this class.
Exactly.
Stay away from my phone, I guess.
So, Brian, I had a question on, we come up with something on our email that we don't recognize, you want us to delete it or just leave it alone, don't
You can
touch
use
it?
what Barb was talking about. There's a way to report using that fishhook
Yeah.
button. That's the best way to report it. It makes it very easy for us to detect. If you email it to me, then it makes my job harder, and I have to look up. That thing ingests it into a portal, and I have everything I need right there instead of actually going in and trying to look stuff
Will
up.
it disappear from our email then?
Yes, so it goes into your spam folder, but it doesn't really disappear. It gets, if it was a clean email, it goes back in. If it's spam, it goes in your spam folder, and if it's a threat, it gets quarantined. It tells you not to go near it, so.
But that fishhook is not accessible from
On
phone.
a mobile device, unfortunately. no.
Right, so it's, you have to go into your computer.
I guess the best advice is just be very careful when you're on your mobile device. They know that. They know that when you're on a mobile device, you're doing things fast and you're, So if it's something that looks fishy, or save it for later, or when you can get on a bigger screen, or better yet, archive it, delete it.
Yep. Any other questions or comments for Brian? All right.
Thanks, Brian.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you, Brian. So we are moving into the general of the 2023 WASB resolutions. WASB has not officially forwarded these to us, but Carlin was able to go online.
Actually, we got him today.
Oh, did we get, okay, we got them
Just
today.
got him today.
But anyway, what we're asking, because there are a number of them, and so we're asking board members to take a look at them at your leisure And if you have any questions, concerns, anything related to any of them, reach out to Corey or Chris. And hopefully then we'll have this on our agenda for January. And we won't be having to go kind of wordsmith each one individually. So we'll be able to, Corey will be able to, and Chris will be able to work behind the scenes. If there are any things that you guys are bringing forward, they'll be able to put that out to the board. So the board is aware of kind of, you know, what questions people have about some of these. And then these items, they'll be voted on at the January meeting. What the action will be basically to tell G, I believe is our delegate this year, to tell G how our board wants him to vote at the school board convention in January. And then these resolutions go into the resolution book that then the WASB legislative group works with as they approach our legislators at the state and federal level to make changes in laws related to schools.
And who created these initial resolutions?
There is a policy committee that is formed by Wisconsin Association of School Boards. I actually served on it for 3 years. It's representatives from across the state, and they have 3 separate meetings where they go through, each school board has the ability to forward a resolution. And then they, over 3 meetings, look through all of those resolutions. Basically, their criteria are 3 things. Number 1, is it timely? Is it a matter that we believe is ripe for discussion? And is it a matter that we believe should be going forward to the delegate body at the convention? And so over that course, then that WASB group comes up with the slate that then they send to us. If people will note, this one is a little bit different than most years in that there are some resolutions that came forward from the various school districts. There are also a number of resolutions that internal staff at WASB is bringing forward, recommended that maybe they're no longer necessary or they just need some upgrading from the WASB perspective.
And the booklet or group of mailings that you got, Corey got, and then I got, also have these in their original form as they came from the district that they came from. So, and to avoid repetition and stuff is what that committee does. And also, we got a copy of the existing resolution. It's like 78 pages long, so it's quite a lot of resolutions over the years.
Yeah.
So do we know when we look at these resolutions where they came from, if they came from a district or came from the committee?
I don't believe the copy that you have indicates where they came from, but the packet that G and I received.
I think the final ones are.
Here's the final.
The board packet.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you have a question, I can give you that information.
If the committee recommends a resolution, are they just following the 3 questions that?
That's their criteria, and the committee does nothing with respect to the merits. You know, they do nothing with respect to whether this is a good idea or a not good idea. It's that this is an idea that that you know they believe is ripe for discussion, is something that should come forward to everyone, that isn't duplicate of something that's already existing in their resolution.
They're not making a recommendation.
They're not making a recommendation. Yeah, that's up to the delegates. All right, so that will be then on the January agenda. So we are looking at our future meeting dates and times, and our next board meeting will be January 9th, 2023. Final, we are looking for, I need a motion for us to go into closed session. And we have a couple of items on the agenda. We have We need a motion to go in under 1985, paren 1, paren C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, specifically consider administrative contract. And second, under 120.13, paren 1, paren C, paren E, consideration of impartial hearing officer's student expulsion order, specifically of a high school student. Do I have a motion to go into closed session?
So moved.
Motion by Scott. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Bushman. Any discussion or questions on that motion? I will have Carlin call the roll.
Ms. Scott?
Yes.
Mr. Ebel?
Yes.
Ms. Portson?
Yes.
Ms. Bushman?
Yes.
Mr. Wade? Mr. Pope?
Yes.
Mr. Robbie?
Yes.
Ms. Rano?
Yes.
Ms. Erler?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, so we need about 10 minutes to
Yes,
get
yeah,
the
need
room set up.
See, Chris?